Well, now that things are looking up, I'd like to get this thing over to the water, but it's kind of hard. In the past, we've asked neighbors that are on the water near us to let us drive over and drive across their yard, but you know, one spin of the wheel on the truck and makes a big mess of the yard. So rather than chance that, there's an area on the other side of the lake where it's kind of an unofficial public boat ramp where people always put their boats in. So I want to trailer it over to there. The good news is the state of Massachusetts lets us renew our trailer registrations online. So I literally just went online and renewed, and then you just print out a receipt and you keep that in the truck until you get your official registration and sticker in. So I'm literally set to go now with this trailer on the road, except for the lights. So when I bought this trailer, the lights were already cracked some, and then we basically finished them off. But they were junk anyways because this one here is full of mud and debris and everything. So went to Harbor Freight and picked up a pair of these lights. There's a right and a left because there's a marker light on the side. So there we go. My assistant helping me here. And I think these were about $15 or $17 a piece. So I think for about 30 bucks we got a pair of lights. And these are LED. So they should last a while, and they are fully submersible according to the instructions here, so, or the description. And they look like they should mount right on here. Hopefully the spacing of those holes that I see on the bracket is the same. If not, I'll have to do a little modification to the bracket. So first thing I think I want to do is just take these broken ones off. So, that's the hot tub. So these look pretty rusted. I would be surprised if they come off. Oh, you know what? That's actually a stainless steel fastener with a non-stainless nut on it. So if I could save that bolt, I will. Only because stainless fasteners are so darn expensive. Alright, these actually came off pretty easily. It's worthy to note that you see one of these wires has an eyelet on it, and the actual mounting bolt goes through. And that's because they use the frame as another ground. So you got to make sure on the new ones that you basically use the same thing. This eyelet's going to be grounded to the frame somehow. Yeah. Oh, that's the base of a bulb. Like, what the heck is that? Yeah. All right. Oh, I'm going to need these are those tough blister packs. I'm going to have to get something to cut these open. All right. Let's see how lucky we are on this spacing. Huh, yeah, pretty good. I wonder if that's standard for trailers or something. Alright, we got a couple of nuts, a couple of washers. So, where do they want the washers? Do they want the washers on the back of the... I'll make sure we do this right. If I put the washers in the wrong position, when I go to tighten this up, I might end up cracking the housing and then water will get in. So that's why I want to follow the instructions here. Of course, they couldn't have just a picture showing me right? No, it'd be too easy. All right, let's see. Install only according to these instructions. Keep installation areas clean and well lit. Okay, yeah, right. Do not install when tired or when under the influence of drugs or medication.
I get you to stop.
That's hilarious. I'm always tired. Oh. Read all instructions. Install on negative ground 12 volt DC systems only. Yeah, that's what we got here. Do not install this product yourself unless you are technically competent to do so.
Nope.
If necessary, have a qualified technician install the trailer light. Oh, you use the correct lights and electrical setup for your trailer. If the vehicle is over 80 inches wide, install 3 additional red marker yeah, all right, not included. Boy, that's a whole lot to tell me without telling me what I want to know. Oh, here we go. Mount this tail light on the right rear of the trailer with its side marker to the outside of the trailer. Well, no duh. Insert carriage bolt heads into 2 of the 4 mounting slots and mount the light to the trailer frame. Notice, to prevent flooding, mount with wiring base facing down. What the hell does that mean? For each carriage bolt, secure with a washer, a locking nut, and a nut. These trailer lights depend on a metal grounded trailer frame, so they don't tell you where to put the washers. The base facing down. Well, it's a right-hand light, so it goes on this side with this facing out, which means this has to face down. So why do they even need to say the base facing down? What the hell are you talking about? Oh, are you kidding me? Look at that. This lip is just hitting that, so I can't get that flush. Could just leave it like that with that space in there. The problem is this wire, oh no, this wire is long enough to go all the way around to the back side here.
Just put self-locking nuts on.
No, it comes with the nuts. See, I don't like, yeah, that can't go like that. It's gonna have to go like this. It's gonna have to go washer, then this. Well, that nut's got a big flange on it though, so I don't like that either. I like this less than I like that telemarketer who just called. And I called him some bad names. That'll work. Can't see from my house.
You're always saying that.
Alright, so now if I... The problem now, Mark, is if I tighten on these any amount, it's going to put stress on that plastic because of that space that's in there, because this isn't...
I say it's fine.
You know what's funny?
What?
I'm looking at this. This looks like somebody already ground and cut this previously for like the lights that were on here before. So I'd say that modifying this is not that unusual. You know what? I bet. Well, never mind what I bet. I'm not betting anything. I'm just going to try it. I'm going to see whether or not I can bend this lip up just enough to get this. Because if this goes past here, we're in like Flint. Do you know what that means, in like Flint?
Do I really want to know?
I was hoping you knew. It's a really old saying. Easier said than done. Well, if I grind some of this metal off of here, that would probably work perfectly. I just was hoping I wasn't going to have to get that involved.
What about that electric one you got?
Yeah, my fancy schmancy cordless one. Jeez, Mark, just when I was looking for an excuse not to have to do this, you gotta mention something like that.
Broke it?
You stinker. Huh?
Broke it already?
I didn't break it.
That's a huge monarch.
You think every big butterfly is a monarch butterfly?
No, it's not. It's the yellow one.
Well, there's your answer. Monarchs aren't yellow. I'm just not going to over tighten those so it doesn't stress the housing and be done with it. Alright, so interestingly enough, we've got 3 wires going to the lights here, and we got this one here, which was the ground. Connect the brown wire of the light to the towing vehicle's running lights. Connect the green wire to the vehicle's right stop and turn light. Attach the white ground wire to the towing vehicle's frame. I'm going to need some cutters, some strippers, some heat shrink tubing, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to solder these and heat shrink tubing them instead of using crimp connectors. Because I'm just in the mood.
You gonna bring a soldering iron out here?
Yeah, I am. Well, nothing's as easy as I wish it would be.
Why?
Well, nothing's as easy as I wish it would be. I wanted to solder the splices so that I could use this smaller diameter heat shrink tubing and make sure it was a watertight connection. I was having too much trouble with the soldering iron out here because I just couldn't get it to work. So I got frustrated and I just decided to use these butt connectors that I have, crimp connectors, which the problem with these that I've run into in the past is that the heat shrink tubing that's large enough in diameter to fit over that it doesn't shrink down enough to really make a true watertight connection here. So I'm not happy with this. I'm gonna have to redo this at some point down the road. They make special splicing connectors that are waterproof, so I'll probably just invest in some of those. The other thing, I had noticed that there's a white wire coming from the wiring harness on the trailer that had an eyelet on it, and I was wondering why the heck is that there? Because the ground from the trailer light has an eyelet on it. So I was like, well, okay, well, that's just the ground in the wiring harness, but that wouldn't explain why this other white wire is here going to the light. And then turns out when I took the light off on the other side, they didn't bother taping this all up like this, so I could clearly see that this wire with the eyelet actually goes right to the light. It doesn't go to the harness. In other words, way up under here, if I look before the wire disappears through this grommet in the frame, I could see that there's only 2 wires, the brown and the green. The brown and the green. This wire that goes into what appears to go into the wiring harness on the trailer actually is just down inside this mess. It's wrapped around everything and comes back to here. So I don't need this to be on. I don't need this to be on here at all. It does absolutely nothing. It's part of the old wire. It's part of the wiring that came with the old light, is what I'm getting at. So if I just take this off, I only need the one that goes to the new light on there. This just goes down in the wiring harness, turns around, and comes right back out to here. If I wanted to remove it completely, I'd have to cut back the insulation, the electrical tape, and it's not necessary. So I'm just going to cut these off. That's that hack job there. So I've got the green wire on and I've got the ground, so that I believe was the parking lights. And I've got the other wires cut off and the old light removed, so I don't have to worry about any shorts in that. So at this point, I can do what I probably should have done in the first place, which was do some tests to make sure that the wiring and the rest of the trailer is okay. So what we've got up here is we've got the classic 4-pin configuration here. And I can see it comes out to here, and what it does is it's got a white wire that goes right to here. So this is your ground for the whole circuit right here. All right, so this wire breaks off, you lose all your lights. And then we got 2 green and 2 yellow. Well, that's interesting. I wonder why these yellow wires turn brown when they come out the other end. Okay, there's 4 pins here, and one pin is ground. I've got to figure out which one it is. One pin is ground. One pin, when it has 12 volts applied to it, will light the parking lights or the driving lights, whatever you want to call them. And then one of the other pins is going to be the left blinker, and the other pin's going to be the right blinker. And when those two have 12 volts constant on them, that's the brake lights. So I could hook this up to the vehicle and just test it. But if there's a short in the wiring, I'm going to blow a fuse in the vehicle. So in order to save money on fuses, I'm going to use my B&K model 1640 12 volt DC regulated power supply. This thing is very handy. Saves me a ton of money on fuses over the years because it's got built-in overload protection. If there's a short, what happens is this overload light will light and it shuts the power supply down and protects itself. No fuses to replace. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for continuity. Put this on audible. Alright, so if I ground this, one of these should be ground. Yeah. It's this one that's shielded. So these three are going to be the ones that 12 volts needs to be applied to depending on what we want to do. So now that I know that this is ground, I'm going to use a here we go. Use an alligator clip to make connection. Actually, I don't even need to do that because I know that that goes right over to here. So all I need to do really is hook my negative up to the frame on the trailer. Now, if I put 12 volts on one of these pins, that light that I already hooked up one of the bulbs in or one of the circuits in should light.
Yeah, it works.
That one works?
Yep.
Alright. Is it off now?
Yep.
So it's on, right?
Very low. Not bright like the first one.
No?
Yep.
Hold on.
There we go.
Yeah, alright. I just had a bad connection to the ground. So it's good now?
Yep.
Alright. So this pin on the far end, this must be the driving lights. So I'm going to hook up the next wire on there and see how it works. Alright, so
Working.
yeah, alright, and then this should be anything?
No.
Yeah, alright, so that's that pin that's closest to the ground pin, that's the blinker for the right side.
Yep.
Alright, I've completed the wiring. Do a final test. So once again, this should light, now this should light both parking lights. I believe we figured out this was the right, so this should be the left blinker. And this should be the right blinker. And if I energize both of these at the same time, that would be the brake lights. Alright, so I've clearly got this wiring screwed up. I think I got it. I think I just had this wiring, had this pin out wrong. It appears that this first pin closest to the ground, when 12 volts is applied to this pin, it lights both lights in the rear and all the marker lights on the trailer. And then when 12 volts is applied to this pin next from the end, only one light, rear light lights, and then the pin on the end only lights the other light. So these two pins right here are your left and right blinkers. This pin right here is your driving lights, and this pin is ground. As long as that's the same on the car, we should be all set. Alright, so getting ready to quit for today. Just got to finish picking up all my tools and stuff, but we've got the wiring on the trailer ready to go. After I finish that, put the batteries for the camera on the charger, and while they were on the charger, I did a little bit of housekeeping, just a few things. For instance, I retightened up these bolts on my homemade bracket here because I had loosen those up from when I lifted the motor up to get the steering cable in. I also I hooked up the linkage for the steering and tested the steering, and I'm happy to say that it works fine. Mark is demonstrating as we speak. Not only does the linkage work fine, but I am able to tilt the motor and it doesn't seem to have anything bad happen. I saw online where some guys were having trouble where the linkage would get bent when they would go to raise the motor, and in their situation it was they had probably were using a linkage like this, but they had a dual cable setup, and you need a different linkage for that apparently. But this worked out fine. I took a guess on this and I got a really good price on this from eBay. I forgot what it was, but it was the cheapest place around. When I got it, I had to figure out how it went in, and basically had one or two ways it could go in, you know. And then I went in and looked. I went and looked at photos online, and all the photos showed the curved end attached to the cable end of the cable here, the rod that comes on the end of the steering cable. I wasn't sure about where this plastic washer is supposed to sit, so I put it on the top. It's a self-locking nut, so that shouldn't be an issue. The ball end over there where it goes onto the motor, interestingly enough, this end right here, this part of the bracket, actually the hole's threaded. And this was the correct size bolt that came with this, that it could thread in there. But every time I tried threading it in from the top, it kept wanting to cross thread. Twice it was cross threading on me. So first time it cross threaded, I backed it out and I put it in through the bottom, ran it all the way through to recut the threads, and then it did it again. So then finally I said, you know what, the heck with it. I'm gonna just run the bolt in from the bottom, and then basically lowered the ball opening down onto the stud, the bolt sticking up, and then put the nut on. The only issue I have with that is I would rather this washer was on top of here, but the problem is this washer is a captive washer. The way this bolt is made, the washer is on the unthreaded part of the bolt, and believe it or not, it didn't want to go past the threads. I didn't want to force it. So, but that should be fine. This is also a self-locking nut, so I don't think we're gonna have an issue with that loosening up. Of course, they tell you to always check your steering linkage every once in a while, make sure nothing's loose.